Shocker, the decade Megyn Kelly obliterates Meghan Markle, Indiana. A jaw-dropping TV showdown that left the world speechless. Picture this: two powerhouse women, both media titans in their own right, squaring off in front of millions' attention. Is electric. The stakes are sky high, and the fallout is nothing short of explosive. When Megyn Kelly took on Meghan Markle live on The View, it wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. It was a seismic clash that exposed raw truths, shattered illusions, and set social media ablaze. This wasn't a polite chat over coffee. This was a masterclass in dismantling someone's carefully curated image with razor-sharp precision. Buckle up, because this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about fame, philanthropy, and media manipulation. Hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and let's dive into the most unforgettable TV moment of the decade. The View studio was buzzing with its usual pre-show energy, but there was something different in the air. That day, the producers had been hyping this episode for weeks, promising a blockbuster event. Megyn Kelly, the nonsense journalist known for her fearless interrogations, was guest hosting. Her presence alone was enough to signal that things were about to get real. But no one, not the host, not the audience, not even producers, could have predicted the fireworks that were about to erupt when Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, stepped onto the set as the featured guest. Megyn walked out with her trademark polished, perfectly styled hair, a radiant smile, and an air of unshakable confidence. She was there to talk about her latest philanthropic ventures, her passion for empowering women, and her commitment to social justice. The audience clapped warmly as she settled into the guest chair, her posture impeccable, her demeanor poised. "I've always believed we have a responsibility to use our platforms for good," Megyn began, her voice smooth and rehearsed, carrying that familiar tone of earnest sincerity. "That's why I'm so passionate about my work with various organizations that support women and children around the world." The words flowed effortlessly, and for a moment, it seemed like this would be another standard celebrity interviews feel-good segment, filled with vague platitudes and mutual admiration. But Megyn Kelly wasn't having it. Sitting across from Megyn, her eyes sharp and her posture alert, Kelly leaned forward slightly, like a predator sizing up its prey. "That's interesting, Megyn," she said, her voice calm, but laced with an edge that made the air in the studio feel heavier. "Can you tell us specifically which organizations you're currently working with and what your actual involvement looks like on a day-to-day basis?" The question seemed innocent enough, but there was something in Kelly's tone, subtle challenge, that made Megyn pause for just a fraction of a second. The audience might not have noticed, but the other host did. Joy Behar shifted in her seat, and Whoopi Goldberg's eyebrows twitched ever so slightly. Megyn, however, recovered quickly, her smile unwavering. "Well, there are several organizations," she said, her voice still smooth. "I prefer to keep some of my charitable work private because I don't believe in doing good deeds for publicity." Kelly's lips curled into a slight smile, but it wasn't friendly. It was a kind of smile that says, "I see right through you, how convenient." She replied, her tone dripping with just enough skepticism to make the audience sit up straighter. "So you're here on national television talking about your charitable work, but you can't name the charities or describe what you do for them because you don't want publicity for your good deeds." The studio fell silent. The hum of the camera is suddenly louder in the absence of chatter. Joy Behar tried to jump in with a light-hearted quip, something about how everyone deserves a little privacy. But Kelly wasn't done, not by a long shot. She had come prepared, and Megyn was about to find out just how thoroughly. "Let me help you out here," Kelly said, reaching for a folder beside her chair. The move was deliberate, almost theatrical, and it sent a ripple of anticipation through the room. "I did some research before today's show because I believe our viewers deserve specifics when public figures talk about their philanthropic work. According to public records, the Archewell Foundation, which you and Prince Harry founded, has some interesting financial disclosures." Megyn's smile faltered just for a moment, but it was enough to betray her unease. "I'm not sure what you're implying, Megyn," she said, her voice still calm, but noticeably tighter. "Everything we do is completely transparent and above board." "I'm not implying anything," Kelly shot back, her tone as sharp as a blade. "I'm stating fact. Your foundation took in over $13 million in donations, but according to your own tax filings, less than 30% of that money actually went to charitable causes. Where did the rest go?" The silence that followed was deafening. The audience, the host, the crew, everyone was frozen, waiting for Megyn's response. Her media training kicked in, and she tried to deflect. "Well, there are administrative costs," she said, her voice measured. "Building a foundation requires infrastructure, and we have to pay our staff fair wages." Kelly nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving Megyn's. "Of course, administrative costs." She said her voice, laced with mock understanding your administrative costs, included a $200,000 payment to a public relations firm, $300,000 in consulting fees to companies that, interestingly enough, are owned by your personal friends, and nearly $500,000 in travel expenses. That's quite a bit of administration. For a foundation that gave away less than $4 million to actual causes, the other hosts were visibly uncomfortable. Now Sunny, hosting, fidgeted with her notes, and Whoop's eyes darted toward the producers offstage as if hoping for a commercial break. But Kelly was relentless. Those are private business matters, Megyn said, her voice growing sharper. I don't think it's appropriate to discuss financial details on television, but you just spent the first 10 minutes of this interview talking about your commitment to transparency and using your platform responsibly. Kelly fired back, her words quick and precise. Which is it, Megyn? Are you transparent about your work, or are your business practices too private to discuss when you're publicly asking people to support your causes? The tension in the studio was now thick enough to choke on the audience, which had been quietly attentive, began to murmur. Some were nodding in agreement with Kelly's pointed questions, while others looked sympathetic toward Megyn, who was clearly struggling to maintain her composure. I think it's unfair to attack someone who is genuinely trying to make a difference in the world, Megyn said, her voice taking on a slightly wounded tone. I've always been committed to helping others, even before I had any kind of public platform. Kelly's expression didn't change. Help me understand that timeline, Megyn, she said, her voice calm but unyielding. Before you married Harry, what charitable work were you involved in? And please be specific, because I have your prefrontal resume right here. Megyn hesitated, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. I was involved in various causes, she said vaguely. I work with organizations focused on women's rights and social justice, such as... Kelly pressed her tone, leaving no room for evasion. There were several, Megyn stammered, clearly unprepared for this level of scrutiny. I don't have exact names memorized. Kelly opened her folder again, the sound of rustling papers cutting through the silence like a knife. According to your own representatives, before your royal engagement, your charitable involvement consisted of one visit to a water charity in Rwanda, which was filmed for publicity purposes, and a few social media posts about various causes. There's no record of regular volunteer work, ongoing financial contributions, or sustained involvement with any charitable organization. So when you say you've always been committed to helping others, what exactly do you mean? The camera caught Megyn glancing toward the producers offstage, her eyes pleading for an intervention. None came. The other hosts, usually quick to jump in and smooth over awkward moments, seemed paralyzed by the intensity of the exchange. Megyn tried a new tactic, her voice rising slightly. I think what's happening here is that you're trying to diminish the work I'm doing now because of some personal agenda, she said, her tone accusatory. This feels like an attack rather than an interview. Kelly leaned back in her chair, completely unfazed. Personal agenda, she said, her voice steady. Megyn, I've never met you before today. I have no personal relationship with you or your family. What I do have is a responsibility to ask the questions that our viewers want answered when public figures come on television asking for their support and money. The audience was now fully engaged, some whispering to each other, others leaning forward in their seats. The energy in the room was electric, a mix of discomfort and fascination. Megyn tried to pivot again, her voice taking on a more emotional tone. You know what, Megyn? I think what's really happening here is that you're uncomfortable with a strong woman who speaks her truth and stands up for what she believes in. Kelly's eyebrows shot up, and for the first time a genuine smile spread across her face, not out of amusement, but out of disbelief. Are you seriously trying to play the strong woman card with me, Megyn? She said, her voice steady but incredulous. I've been in journalism for over 20 years. I've interviewed presidents, covered wars, and faced down some of the most powerful people in the world, asking tough questions. I built my career on not backing down from difficult conversations. So please don't insult both of us by suggesting I'm intimidated by anyone in this room. The audience erupted into murmurs, some clapping in support of Kelly's response, others shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Megyn's composure was visibly crumbling, now her hands clasped tightly in her lap. This is exactly the kind of treatment I've had to deal with from the media for years, she said, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and frustration, the constant questioning, the refusal to take my word at face value, the need to pick apart everything I say. Welcome to being a public figure, Kelly replied without missing a beat. When you ask for people's money and support, when you make claims about your work and your character, you get questioned. That's not persecution. That's accountability. Megyn's eyes flashed with defiance. But it's different for me, she said, her voice rising. You know, it's different for me because of who I am and what I represent. Kelly paused, studying Megyn carefully. What exactly do you represent, Megyn? She asked, her voice calm, but piercing, because I'm genuinely curious about your answer. I represent change, progress, a new way of thinking about service and duty, and using your platform responsibly, Megyn replied, her voice gaining strength. As she leaned into familiar talking points, Kelly's response was swift and brutal. Anyone can say they represent change and progress. She said, what I'm asking about is your actual record. What specific changes have you implemented? What measurable progress have you achieved? Because from where I'm sitting looking at the facts, it seems like you're very good at talking about change, but not so good at actually creating it. Joy Behar finally found her voice, her tone cautious. Megyn, don't you think you're being a little harsh here? Kelly turned to face Joy, directly, her expression unyielding. Joy, if someone came on this show claiming to be a doctor but couldn't explain basic medical procedures, would you call it harsh to question their credentials? If someone said they were a teacher but couldn't name a single student they taught, would that be unfair scrutiny? Megyn has built her entire post-royal brand on being a philanthropist and activist, but when asked for specifics about her work, she can't provide them. That's not harsh. That's journalism. Whoopi Goldberg, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. But Megyn has been very open about her experiences, and her commitment to making a difference. Being open about your experiences is not the same as being effective in your work. Kelly countered, her voice firm but measured. Oprah was open about her experiences, but she also built schools, created scholarships, and can point to thousands of lives she's directly impacted. Ellen was open about her experiences, but she also donated millions of her own money to causes she believed in. What has Megyn actually accomplished beyond talking about her intentions? Megyn's face was now flush, her hands gripping the arms of her chair. I don't think I should have to justify my work to someone who clearly has already made up her mind about me, she said, her voice shaking with emotion. I haven't seen made up my mind about anything, Kelly said, her tone unwavering. That's exactly why I'm asking these questions. I came here today with an open mind, ready to learn about your work and your impact. But every question I ask gets met with deflection, vague answers, or accusations that I'm being unfair. If you have real accomplishments, real impact, real results from your work, then share them. Help me understand why people should support you. The camera zoomed in on Megyn, capturing the moment she looked down at her hands, clearly struggling to find a response. When she finally spoke, her voice was sharp and defensive. You want specifics? She said, fine. To my work, I've raised awareness about issues that matter. I've used my platform to shine a light on problems that were being ignored. I've given a voice to people who didn't have one. Kelly nodded, as if considering the response. Okay, that's a start, she said. Can you give me one specific example of a problem that was being ignored until you brought attention to it? Megyn hesitated, her eyes darted around the room. There are many examples. She said, her voice less confident now. Just one. Kelly pressed her tone, unrelenting. One specific issue that wasn't getting attention until you spoke about it. Like, comment, share, subscribe now.